Hello, I'm going to do the Clean Slate tag. I'm going to do the Clean Slate tag again, but I'll get to that. I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. This is a tag that's been revived by Jess at Jess Book Girl TV. It's a tag that was created by Catalyst Reads, a channel that is sadly no longer available. I remember Catalyst Reads back in the day. That's why I've done this tag before. It was like the 10th video that I did on my old channel 7 years ago. And I feel like, you see, this is the fog of memory. I feel like he made this tag because he had already he had created his channel, done some videos for a while, then deleted his channel, and then came back again. And this was sort of his, I'm clean slate, I'm coming back in, gonna give it another shot. And, for whatever reason, it didn't work out for him. I remember him as being a very kind of thoughtful, quiet-spoken fellow. Often he would sit on his front porch and do kind of the old school, from my point of view, old school, videos where he would just sort of talk off the top of his head. It was just using like whatever potato camera he had on his phone, and would just come up with just really warm and engaging videos, which I think when it comes to me, warm and engaging, welcoming is the highest compliment I can give a fellow booktuber. So I think this tag really speaks to me because I've had my struggles with booktube, mine struggles, but I've always kept going, even when I departed from my old channel. We can talk about that later. That's the wind. That isn't Catalyst. The spirit of Catalyst Reed coming into the room to fill me. No, but I'll talk about that as I go along. This is probably going to be the first. I'm going to do this tag as a rough take. I'm going to do this as a rough take to begin with, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the version of the tag that I did 7 years ago. That book number 10. I'm going to look at number 10 and see if I can't then make some notes on that version of the tag and incorporate it into answers that I'm about to give right now. But I figured I'd start off by keeping myself self clean of that old version, just make my answers, and then see what's the differences, what's the similarities between the two going forward. So with that lengthy preamble, let's do the prompts. Or even any genres that you're going to read more of or less of in the next year. I don't think there's genres. For me, it's mostly, I have a tendency to just kind of bounce back and forth between various different genres, various fiction, nonfiction. I have a sense that it's probably going to be steady as you goes that way. I've got a project going, which means the time period will be slightly different. But I think just the genres and stuff like that, I'm not planning on becoming, World War II guy or anything like that, as I know someone out there gets teased about all the time. Number 2, are there any books that you have read recently that changed or challenged some of your own philosophies and beliefs? I think that oftentimes, it depends what you mean by changed or challenged. I think it's always good to run up against people that you don't agree with, or that maybe challenge how you looked at a certain time period. When it comes to challenging a certain time period, that would be reading When the Clock Broke by John Gantz, which is a nonfiction book about the losers of the 1990s, a decade that I very much went through, and the political and social losers of the 1990s who have come back. They came back. They were the losers. They were the jokes. They were the fringe. Obama in the United States, especially because this is a U.S. book, was going to kind of change everything and sweep all this aside. And that did not happen. Now you have a very Republican, very right-wing, very authoritarian government in the United States, and a lot of the people who are in charge are the losers, or the inheritors of those losers, and it really makes you think of it that time of how, especially for someone like myself who's definitely on the left side, who kind of laughed at people like that, who dismissed them, who said like in a generation, young people are going to leave all of that kind of racist nonsense, anti-science stuff behind. Um, that that didn't happen. Both that and in my own country, there's actually much more a swing with young people to the right, and I mean, and also young men. So I was a young man at that point, thinking, we're all going to be, you know, we're gonna get better, from my point of view, and that did not happen. So that's one book that challenged my kind of view of a time, like maybe pulled off my nostalgia goggles for that time. The other book that definitely challenged my beliefs, or not didn't challenge because it didn't change them at all, but I really ran into them hard, was Life's Handicap. Oh God, I'm gonna have to look up the date. I should put that down there. Is the date is what the hell was the date of that book? I should put that for actually both of them. I should put date question mark for when the clock broke, and then Life's Handicap. Date question mark. Life's Handicap, a collection of short stories by Rudyard Kipling, subtitled Being Stories of My Own People, published in 1897 or 1885, somewhere in there, somewhere, not 1885, have to be in the 90s, which is short stories that focus on his own people, who were the Anglo-Indian colonizers of India. And this story really challenged me because of story after story of frankly racist characters by an author who was of the firm opinion that Indians were children best taken care of by their superiors, the English. Also racist towards Irish people and others. And all of this was written by an unmistakably great writer. So can you be a great writer and have so many hateful and wrong beliefs? That maybe is the most challenging part there. It's easy when there's a hack writer who is spewing stuff that you find distasteful and hateful and frankly harmful to the world. And yeah, I found that book pretty draining to read, just to get going from one shitty setup to another, to another, to another. I'm reading Kipling because of this project I have of reading kind of deeply in this certain time period in here. And one of the goals with that is I wanted unvarnished view of what people thought in these times. And Rudyard Kipling definitely wasn't writing from the fringes of his society. He was writing from the very much central. I mean, there were people who definitely virulently opposed him at the time, but he was very much of his time period. And I mean, maybe that shouldn't be surprising after looking at John Gantz's book just before here. So I am gonna actually, it's a part of what I want to do is get into this stuff. I am going to go back to Kipling and read more of him. I'll probably read the Jungle Book, some of his genre works, which it's interesting. There was like one story in this book that was a genre story, and that was easier to take. And it maybe wasn't any less racist, but it was wrapped within a genre, and that made it easier to go down, which is like, oh, that's a complicated thing in itself of like, is genre a good way to inculcate people into your beliefs with a little bit of sugar, which is like, that's also not a great thing. So yeah, I will get back to Kipling, but that was definitely one of my more challenging reads in recent memory. Wow, this is going to be long. Number 3, are there any channels you would recommend for a newbie to watch? there are kind of the biggies, the big booktubers to watch. And for me, I mean biggies like within criminology, MJ, Brian Bookish, Steve Donahue, Kelly, books I'm not reading, people I consider biggies. Which aren't biggies at all. They're little minnows. But that can also kind of be not a great way to, you start measuring yourself against people like that. You know, the people who are really taken to things like ducks to water. They've, you know, I don't think they make it look easy, especially right now. But I think it's more valuable to make sure that you start watching your fellow newbies, the people who are going to be at kind of the same experience level as you and are going to make the same mistakes as you are going to make. And you guys can support each other. I think that's crucial. I think of some of the main connections that I have with BookTube, are people now that are far, that have gone far more into this than I have, but they're the ones I have the most emotional connection to. So like building a large cohort of newbies, because to be frank, it's kind of tough to be, it's a lot of work to be it's really rewarding to be a booktuber, but it's tough and things get in the way. And so people fall aside. Catalyst Reads fell aside. You by fell aside, I mean, maybe it wasn't for them, or life got in the way, or whatever circumstances. It's really valuable to have as large a cohort of those newbies in your circle as possible. That is really, really, really important, I think, to going forward. I enjoy the new crop and stuff like that, but I doubt if they have particularly much of an emotional connection to me. And because it's like it's the people that you came up with. Your class is the ones that are really going to really stick with you. Yeah. Number 4, do you have a book bucket list? And initially, I think I said no, I don't have a bucket list. I don't have a list, but I just finished reading War and Peace, and I think War and Peace is that, for me, who I don't do lists, is one of those books that kind of floated around in my my bookish universe as like, that's a big book. That's like something that just sticks out. That, like, you know, Tolstoy in general, but War and Peace maybe in particular, as like, oh, okay, that's something, you know, at some point I'm going to get to. And I finally did get to it. And I do feel a sense of accomplishment doing that it is a bit of a monument. So I don't know how many of those books I know. Just looking over here, probably at some point I will do Ulysses. I should find a really great, the great e-copy of it that has like annotations and stuff like that, if such a thing does exist. And do that. I've tried it once before, I think, and I didn't get that. I only got a couple of chapters in. So that's probably, you know, there's a couple of books like that float around in there, but I don't have a concrete list of these are the books I must read before I die. It's like, no, I'm reading for enjoyment. Sometimes that enjoyment is hitting those big peaks, but that happens, you know, that happens every once in a while. Number 5, what is it about BookTube that has surprised me the most? I think the thing that surprised me about BookTube the most, and this is coming from kind of a 7, almost 8-year perspective, is just how much it's stuck into my life, how much it's incorporated into my life, especially into my reading life for me. I don't think I haven't made like, you know, deep outside of BookTube friends from BookTube. I'm just not that kind of guy. I don't make those kind of connections, but I've really incorporated it into my reading life. It's a part of reading for me now. It's like it helps me focus my thoughts about a book. I like reading, and I like thinking about reading, and having to make a video about a book that I've just read improves my experience of the book. And I found that really rewarding. And I think, aside from a lot of other frufraha of kind of thinking about, which for the most part, I've managed to kind of put aside, of subscriber numbers, who's watching my videos, anyone care about me? It's like, I think I've been managed to actually put that aside and just go, no, this is how I read. This is a furtherance of my reading, is what BookTube is. And that's surprising. That's surprising how much built in that's become, for me. Speaks to another 7 years, maybe. Number 6, what are some of your goals? They don't have to be related to BookTube. Well, I mean, outside of BookTube, it's like family, more family, physical health, financial stuff, all sort of fun stuff. Within BookTube, it's to get over myself, still to get over myself. I've got that strong. You wouldn't be able to tell by watching my videos, but I have a, I don't know if it's a perfectionist streak or if it's a bit more of a kind of a harsh self-criticism thing that prevents me from releasing very much on my public channel here. I need to kind of get over myself and just sort of release stuff and then move on. That's probably my main goal. I guess my reading goal is continuing, as my reading project is to read books that were published from 1890 to 1910, and also history books that were kind of written about that time. That for me is, my grandfather was born in 1901, and it's just sort of like, oh, what was the world that my grandfather was born into, and how much can I immerse myself in that, and immerse myself into it through fiction and nonfiction. Is just like, okay, I've picked a period, and it's not a period that's overplowed, so that's good, and it's also an era that I can go to Project Gutenberg and get all these books for free, which is the cheap Scottish. My grandfather was a Scots, so thrifty, definitely as well. Number 7, if you could meet any writer, artist, or musician, dead or alive, who would they be? I always balk at this question because it's one of these things of like, just because I like a work by a person doesn't mean that the person themselves is going to be particularly the person that I need to meet. I mean, I think that the most significant writer that I met in my life was meeting poet Patrick Lane when I went into a first year writing program at University of Victoria, and going, oh my God, this is a real person who is a poet. This is a guy. This is like a guy, and that had a profound effect on me of just like, this is a person. I'm a person. I could I don't know, it humanized, strangely enough, it humanized literature for me. So that's perhaps the thing, is just to like hang out with people. You're going to get raging assholes. You're going to get really awesome guys. You're going to get people that confuse the hell out of you. So that would be the thing, I guess. God. Number 8, would you rather have your life written by your favorite author or be portrayed in a movie by your favorite actor, actress? I hate to be seen. I think both would kind of horrify me. Probably, I guess, an actor, because I kind of like writing my own story. This is my own story here. I'm portraying my own story here. But I mean, if it's going to be a Hollywood movie, I guess Jason Statham can play me against type, or maybe Tilda Swinton. There's 2 good choices for actors or something like that. Not that I would say that. Tilda Swinton is definitely a favorite actor. Jason Statham is just, he's a bald git. So, that would be a good one. And I'm completely not a macho brute. So, well, I don't know if he's a macho brute, but, macho dude. Number 9, what are some of the challenges you have to overcome or would still like to improve in regard to your channel? I think, as I said, getting over myself, kind of just accept what comes out is what comes out. I mean, still within that, it's not like I'm just going to start releasing half an hour tag videos. That would be stupid. But, just try and be myself, but be myself in, try and have respect for people who are watching the videos at the same time. Try and edit that down. I go on. This is why I'm doing this take of the video, so I can watch this and try and edit it down. So we'll leave it at that for the moment, and I'll go back and watch myself do this and then try and come up with a pithy way of doing it. Number 10, what advice would you give to someone that is thinking about deleting their YouTube channel? I always go back and forth over this. Look, from a selfish point of view, I really wish that Catalyst Reeds had left up his videos. I really do. They feel like they're a part of my early history of BookTube. I think I left comments on those videos, and it would be really nice if it was still there. That said, those are his videos. That is his production. He has control over those. Just because he released them doesn't mean he can't just say, and I don't feel like sharing anymore. So there is that. I think I would ask the person to think about how those videos record a certain, like, your life, your thoughts, your feelings at a certain time in a certain place, and how valuable that might be to look back later in your life. But yeah, those videos are your own, so you get to make the decision, which is, I think, a part of the reason why people feel free about putting stuff in the first place. It's like, well, if this didn't work for me, I will delete it. Yeah. So yeah, that's where it's at. I respect Catalyst Reed for making his own decisions. I'm very grateful that he shared it with, select number of people at a certain time. And yeah. Number 11, tag others. I'm going to go back to that olden time and see if any of those folks are still around. I know some of them are, and see if they did the video in the past and whether they'd like to do it again. So I will do that at the end. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Oh my God, 22 minutes. Well, that's probably what it would be like for a first try at the Clean Slate tag. Hopefully I'm not going to do 6 takes like I did for the book confession tag, because that was ridiculous. But now I'll go back and watch that old video of mine, that old video, and see what it's like, and then maybe weave it in here. Or maybe I won't need to, and then I can just edit this down. That would be nice. All right, I'm going to leave it there. More videos later.